West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Good afternoon from Linlithgow, Scotland. My name is John McKechnie and I'm the Welcomer Reader today. Welcome to our Sunday gathering, whether you are near or, like me, far from Scarborough, Ontario. Today, Cynthia Westaway returns to bring her perspective on the duty to consult. We're so glad she's with us once again. Welcome whether you have a long connection with West Hill or if you're just beginning to connect with us. This week sees two important dates coming up: Canada Day and Independence Day. So we, from outside of Turtle Island, wish you happy, good celebrations, however you choose to do this over the coming days. Our host today is Joe Pittenger. Scott Cairns is at the piano. Babette Oliveira is our song leader. And the tech desk, overseen by Aidan Ware, is Ian Prithviraj and Suni. And so now we turn to the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that West Hill United is located in Treaty 20 and in the area of the Williams Treaties of 1923. These are the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and were previously occupied by the Seneca and Huron-Wendat First Nations. Please take a moment to look towards the two-row banner, which is displayed in our meeting hall. It was purposefully designed and chosen by our congregation because it is based on the two-row Wampum Treaty, which is a mutual treaty agreement made in 1613 between representatives of the five nations of the Haudenosaunee and representatives of the Dutch government in what is now upstate New York. It is one of the oldest treaty relationships between the Onwehonwe of the original people of Turtle Island and European immigrants. The treaty acknowledges the agreement that the two nations will live side by side in a relationship of peace, friendship, respect, and non-interference for as long as the water flows downhill, the grass grows green, and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The first reading today is by Bruce McIver, who is a lawyer and historian, principal of First Peoples Law Corporation, and an adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia's Allard School of Law, where he teaches the constitutional law of Aboriginal and treaty rights. Bruce is a proud Métis from the Red River in Manitoba. At the end of the readings, you're invited, if you wish, to do so. After I have said, offered as wisdom for the journey, you can join me in saying, may we walk in its light. So the first reading. Anyone still unsure when and how the duty to consult is intended to apply has not done their homework. First Nations have borne the disproportionate burden of clarifying the law around the duty to consult and accommodate. Faced with governments that ignore the Supreme Court's clear directions, First Nations have been forced to expend their energy and limited resources on litigation to defend their Aboriginal title, rights, and treaty rights. In court, they are opposed by governments and companies with comparatively unlimited resources, derived in large part from exploiting Indigenous lands. The law of the duty to consult is clear and workable. Complaints from industry, to the contrary, smack of an underlying different agenda. Similar to industry lobbyists' complaints of too much red tape, those who grumble that the law of the duty to consult has too much uncertainty likely mean there is just too much of the duty to consult. Instead of blowing smoke in our eyes with complaints about a lack of clarity surrounding the duty to consult, industry and its sympathisers should be pressing governments to live up to the spirit and intent of their constitutional obligations to Indigenous peoples. And a second brief reading. The Government of Canada has a duty to consult and, where appropriate, accommodate Indigenous groups when it considers conduct that might adversely impact potential or establish Aboriginal or treaty rights. The duty stems from the honour of the Crown and is derived from Section 35 of Canada's Constitution Act 1982, which recognises and affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights. That's from the Government of Canada website, canada.ca. This is offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in
May
its
we
light.
walk in its light.
Cynthia is Senior Counsel at First Peoples Law, where she relies on her experience as Senior Counsel at the Aboriginal Affairs Department of Justice Canada and as Director General and Head of Justice Legal Services for Global Affairs. Interestingly, Cynthia also holds degrees in dance, literature, law, and comparative law, studying the legal regimes for Indigenous peoples of New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the United States. She has worked tirelessly for over 20 years defending and advancing the rights of Indigenous peoples across Canada. Join me in extending a warm West Hill welcome back to Cynthia Westaway. Cynthia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. What a great opportunity to be back together. I will do a little bit of an opening, but then I really do hope to have more of a conversational experience today and work together on this thinking. I'll offer a quick apology. I'm in a remote area, and so my internet will freeze occasionally. Joe said he would sing a song or something in between. No, so hopefully you'll just be able to wait, and I'll come right back. But I did want to apologize for that. I'm up near Killarney Park, not too far from Sudbury today. What a great introduction to hear the language around the Royal Proclamation and also the words of my partner. Thank you in that reading of Bruce McIver of First Peoples. The Royal Proclamation really set out a fair and just path. Unfortunately, our legal system, which is the perspective I bring today as a lawyer of 30 years in this area, looks at this as a policy document. So they'll refer to the Indian Act, they'll refer to Section 35 of the Constitution, which is helpful, but the Royal Proclamation has never been given any teeth or any strength at law. So I'm so glad that you had that historic presentation. Many Canadians don't know what the Royal Proclamation is. When I get into negotiations for consultation with industry, the first thing we do is share with corporate leaders the Royal Proclamation, what the Constitution is, what treaties are. Unfortunately, we shouldn't have to do that at a first meeting, but we spend 2 or 3 meetings just setting the table, because First Nation negotiators come with that knowledge and that history that our Canadian corporations don't arrive at the table with that background all the time. So that's wonderful to have that video shared today. So that's where the fiduciary duty of the Crown should come from, the Royal Proclamation that in the video that you saw. The Crown interposed itself in order to create protections and a level playing field, perhaps, but instead it created a dominance and an interposition that now engenders fiduciary duty of the Crown that we're still trying to have respected. So I'm called to 10 different bars in Canada. I've been very lucky to work up north and in all provinces and territories. So I'm really open to answering any question on any topic that comes to your heart and your mind today. But I will start by just maybe focusing a little bit on what's happening, the issues of the day around the duty to consult and the honor of the Crown. The Supreme Court has grounded the obligations of all of us in the honor of the Crown and doing what is right. And that we have a new case this year that the court has for the first time awarded damages against parties and entities that don't live up to those duties, to act honorably, to do the right thing in relationships with First Nations. Because we've had, as the reading from Bruce McIver from First Peoples Law and all the blogs that you can follow there says, we've had a lot of lip service. We haven't had anybody come and truly try to build that relationship in a fair and just and equitable way with good faith. You know, it's very, very rare. I can count on one hand the fair processes that I've seen, and I can tell you 100 stories where we're disingenuous and we're just lip service. So we need to turn that around for sure. And perhaps the award of damages for the first time this year will inspire corporations and provincial and federal crowns to respect and to honor the legal obligations that already exist. Again, in the reading, that was a great segue for me. And you'll wave at me if I cut out. I can't tell when I'm cutting out sometimes, but you know, that the importance of building that relationship is critical. Right now we have Bill 5 that you're hearing about in Ontario from provincial government, and Bill C5 that you're reading in the paper for the federal government across Canada, where we want to action infrastructure, where Canada wants to compete and reduce its independence on the US and other nations. And while that's a laudable goal, we have to make sure that First Nations who are living in those lands, Indigenous peoples who are living in their Inuit territories and Métis in their territories, are able to guide and lead the process. That's where they live. That's what the Royal Proclamation tried to teach us. So to go ahead and approve a project before the information has gone to those First Nations and has been shared would be, again, a further disservice and just adding to the wrongs. So I think that it's really an important time for us to reset that relationship and make sure that we're leading and listening. In the duty to consult, there are several key elements. At the University of Ottawa right now, we're starting a consultation hub that will give some free services. I'll just pause for 1 second. Sorry, I got a dog that's barking. Okay, so I will just jump back in. So the duty to consult often starts too late. It starts once a project has begun and it's already crossed trap lines. It's already interfering with burial sites. It's already stopping the four-leggeds, the animals, the waters that flow, the lands that need to be protected from being protected. And it's already moving planning for tailings ponds and mining. So it has to come earlier in the process. The other challenge we have is that there's no level playing field on funding. So clearly you've got large corporations, governments, entities wanting to move infrastructure forward, and you've got a small chief and council, maybe with one's lands officer, with no access to environmental expertise. Sometimes they have a lawyer, if they can get out, you know, there's not enough of us to go around, they're underserviced. And so clearly there's not a level playing field in that way either. So funding is a big issue. And then once that relationship starts, the Supreme Court has said that consultation is iterative and has to continue. It's a living relationship. So again, what we're really concerned about in Canada for industry, for moving forward, for creating those long-term relationships is really just good faith. It's an old British concept that isn't living yet. So again, I think that's, if I was going to describe all of my, 25 years of negotiation and litigation and appearing at various courts, appearing at various negotiation tables, it's really that thing that we talked about, in love, that in the context of the Pride Parade, in the context of respect for our elders. It's the same critical good faith and respect in the Indigenous area. There's nothing different about that. It's really just not coming at any kind of approach, project, relationship with only one perspective, but instead being there to listen to the knowledge and wisdom of others so that we can have that equal sharing. So that's what's been missing in the law. That's what's been missing in our relationships, in our perspectives in Canada historically. And so that's the work that I see your church doing. And I hope that that others will continue to do in my area. And I think with that, Joe, and others, I'll just pause and see kind of what kind of questions people might have in their mind. There's no such thing as a good or a bad or a medium question or a comment, but I would love to kind of cover what's on your minds.
Thank you, Cynthia. Really, really appreciate it, and for all the work that you do. Does anybody have a question? And Scott or someone there in the room,
I
if you
have
could.
the mic, and
Nice.
Aaron has a question to begin with.
So when you sit down at the table, negotiating table, what's the one overwhelming question that the corporations have, or the one piece of education that they need in order to move forward?
Wow, that's very interesting. So usually the problem is the difference in perspectives that the corporation comes and they've got a timeline and they're already into their process. They've already planned their mine or they've already planned their forestry project, and they want to know how can they get these people who live there out of their way to get their business done. Sometimes they come with a little bit more respect than that, but it's managing the differences in perspective. So if I'm working with a corporation, when I'm, was working at Global Affairs, for example, there would be cross-cultural training. You wouldn't go to Japan where Joe's brother is living, and you wouldn't go to another country without understanding how they work there and what the history and the culture is to do good business out of respect. But we don't realize that in Canada, we have like 90 different languages, 80 different cultures. We have 630 First Nations. We have 5 Métis or 5 Inuit associations up north, plus our Western and our Eastern Inuit. Like we have so many different cultural groups and leaders, and nobody takes the time to know their history. So these land acknowledgements are really starting to help in that people understand, oh, there's a history here in this territory before I even got here. That's kind of helpful, but it needs to go a lot deeper than that. So usually what we do is we sit down and we go through the Royal Proc treaties, rights, all the constitutional bit for the first couple of meetings. And then we say, okay, now let's put all that away. what can we do together moving forward? And similarly with my First Nation clients, I explained to them, here's what this company is trying to do, and here's their timeline, and here's how they have to raise equity on the market, and this is why they need to put out a press release. But they, and the chiefs are amazed. Like, they're putting out a press release about our territory before they even talk to us about it, because the legal requirements force them to do that in order to build equity in the right way. So though there's a real lack of misunderstanding, it's a lack of understanding, it's a cross-cultural interchange. So all of those things need to be shared in the first few meetings. And the more we can get done in our school systems with our children before they become executives, before they become chiefs, before they become lands officers, the better off we would all be at that table. It's understanding and education that we're still lacking. Good question.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.